Hi, today we're going to learn about index match. We're going to start with a file that we downloaded from File Download Manager. As usual, we're going to copy this file, so we're going to right-click on the tab. Menu is going to come up. We're going to hit Move or Copy. We're going to hit Create, and we're going to place this wherever we want in the bar, and we hit OK. I've already done this step. And the reason that I always make a copy of my download is because I want to preserve the original data should I need to go back for any reason. So in this case, we have the working folder. From the working folder, I filtered and sorted and identified the students who were going to test for Algebra 1 and created my Algebra 1 roster. In this Algebra 1 roster, I started assigning test dates and test room numbers. And as I went along further in the process, I realized that had I downloaded also the homeroom teachers and homeroom numbers, I could have used the same information to generate passes for students or testing notices for the teachers. Seeing as I already have all the components that I need here. I have the student ID, I've got the student name, I've got the date that they're testing, and the room number. So what I did was that I created a copy of this tab and called it Original. And I brought in Homeroom Teacher. I created a column header for Homeroom Teacher and one for Homeroom Number. And I brought this in as a reference. And this is just an image that I have placed here that basically breaks out the formula that is now going to enable us to bring in the homeroom teacher and the homeroom number from another file versus scrapping all the work that I had done up until this point and having to regenerate a file with this information in it. So basically what the index match formula does is it says, okay, so I need this information, which is located in another sheet. I'm going to tell you what sheet and what column it's on, and then I'm going to tell you what criteria to match so that you can bring the information over to this sheet. So let's take a look and see the formula itself and how it works. So here's the formula. You see that I have characters in red and other characters in green. The characters that are in red are non-negotiable. They have to be included as part of the formula. In green, that's the information that is specific to the file that you're using. So this is how it would read. You've got two components or two parts of this formula. You've got the first part that executes an index command, and it tells the program, okay, I need you to go index. What are you indexing? You're indexing on this sheet that I've created in this column the information that I need brought over into my document. Now, for the purposes of this training, the document that we're working out of is original. That's our original form, our original file or original sheet is the where we want to place this formula and bring the information in. The information that's being referenced is in a sheet that I've tagged info. And in that tab on that worksheet, it's column L that we want the first piece of information to come from, which will be the homeroom teacher. Now let's look at the second part of the formula. And you'll see that the first part of the formula and the second part of the formula are divided by this comma. These commas are critical, and you have to include these commas. Otherwise, you will get all sorts of errors. So this comma now separates the first index part component with now this new command that we're giving the program that we're saying, okay, we need you to match. What are we having it match? We're saying, okay, from this original document that I have here in cell A2, so that's cell A2 on our original document, it happens to be the student ID. Why? Because you need to pick a criteria that is specific to each and every student. In this case, student ID would be the one that's most plausible. If you use student name, you might have several Jennifer Rodriguez's, in which case you're not going to get an exact match, and that's going to be a problem because you won't get the results that you need. So now you've told the program, okay, so I need you to match using the criteria that's found in A2 on this original document and I need you to match it. And again, here's another comma that separates and lets the computer know, hold on, I'm giving you now another piece of information that you're going to need in order to execute this formula. So now I got to tell it what it's matching to. If I've given it the first criteria here on our original, now I need it to go over to the info sheet, and I'm telling it on the info sheet, you're going to look down column A, which is why we use A:A, and you're going to look in its entirety until you find the match for this first student ID. When you find that match, here's another comma, you're going to bring back an exact match. That's the 0. The 0 says, I don't want a value that's above or below, a value that's more or less. I need the exact value. It needs to be an exact match. In other words, here's essentially what you're telling the program. You're saying, take this piece of information, and I want you to find it. Where are you going to find it? You're going to find it here in this specific column. And when you find it in this specific column, I want you to go across and find the teacher name, and then bring that value and put it right in here. So that's the goal here, and that's the function of the formula itself. So let's see what it looks like. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to execute the equal command. The equal command tells the program immediately, it recognizes that you're inputting a formula. So as you start writing the first command, which is index, so let's see, we write I, and immediately a submenu pops up, and it's giving you all sorts of different formula options or command options. We're not seeing the one we want, however, we can either scroll down and find it, or we can simply continue typing and immediately it'll bring it up. Once you find it, you're going to hover over it, you're going to double click real quick, it's going to auto-populate, and it's going to open that parentheses. When the parentheses opens, now you're going to point and click. So what is it that we want? We want from the info sheet column L:L. So let's come to the info sheet, and you'll see up here on your bar, on your formula bar, the information is actually auto-populating as you click. Let's go to the top, and we're going to see here is the information that we need. This is the column that we're looking for, so we're going to click on that. And you see that now we have the first part of the formula complete. We've got equals index, open parentheses, info, exclamation mark, L:L. We're now ready to give it the second part of the formula. But first, we must include that comma, we must open a new parentheses, and we must let it know or give it the command for the second part of the formula. So again, I'm going to type M. As soon as the M gets typed, match comes up. So we're going to double click, and we're going to say, yes, that's what we want. It auto-populates, and it opens another parentheses. Now you come back to our formula here, and what do we need? We need to go back to our other tab labeled original. So we're going to click on our tab labeled original, which is our original document, and we're going to say, okay, what is it here that we're matching? Well, what we're using are the student IDs. So we're going to go to the first instance of the student ID. In this case, it's located in cell A2. However, if we were using FLE IDs, it would be B2. A word of caution with FLE IDs, before FLE IDs are assigned, when a student is in a holding pattern, you could have multiple students with the same FLE ID because it's a temporary FLE ID that's given to them. So just be cautious if you are going to use the FLE ID. In this case, we're going to go back to the student ID, and you see that now this match command is citing the original tab, specifically A2, as what is going to be matched. Now we need to tell it, what are we matching to? We're going to place a comma, and we're going to come down here again to our formula, and we see that now we have to take it back to the source sheet where the information is that we need to bring in. So the source in this case, we've labeled it info. So we're going to go to info, And where here can we find the match? Well, the match happens to be in column A again. Now, it could be that this is column C or it's in column I. It doesn't matter where it is, but we do want to select it. So in this case, we're going to select A, and you'll see that it, once again, continues to complete the formula for us. So far we've executed the index command, we've executed the match command. Now we need to make sure that it returns an absolute value or an exact match. So we're going to put another comma, we're going to put a 0, and as we learned in math all our lives, if you open 3 parentheses, you got to close 3 parentheses, right? So we close the 3 parentheses and we hit enter, and there's our first teacher. You can now either click on this on the lower right-hand corner, you get the crossbars. You can either click and drag down, and what you see is that you're actually applying the formula, and the formula is adjusting with the value here, so that it's always coming back here, and it's as you go dragging down, it's adjusting to the next cell. So it's going from A2 to A3, A4, A5, A6, which is where we're sitting right now. If we go down one, we're at A7, so on and so forth. We can continue this drag down method, or we can just hover over the last value that we have and hover over the lower right hand corner again, and if you click twice quickly, it will auto-populate all the way down to the last row of data that you have. So once you have that, whoops, the next step that you need now is you're going to bring in the homeroom number. The same way you did the homeroom teacher, you're now going to execute the formula for the homeroom number. So we're going to do it again. So remember, you start with the index sign, the equal sign, because that is what lets Excel know that you're inputting a formula. You start typing out your command until it pops up on the menu, hover over it, double click, a parentheses opens. Once the parentheses opens, you're going to let the program know what information it is that you want it to bring in. In this case, again, our source sheet has been named info, so we're going to click on it. But this time, we're going to move over a column because we need now the room number. So whereas before we were referencing column L here by saying, give me the information that's located in column L, we now need to change that to column M. So we're going to come up here. Actually, we're just going to come right here, I'm sorry, and we're going to click on M. That happened because I already had put down the M and put my cursor, so I'm going to take that all the way back, and now when I select M, it'll fill in both the info sheet name, the name of the sheet, and M:M. We now once again must take into account that we're about to do the second part of the formula, and so a comma is required to separate the first part of the formula from the second. Again, we're going to open parentheses and we're going to start typing our command. In this case, it's match. We type the M, match comes up, we double click, it autofills and opens another parentheses. At this point, if you reference back down to our formula, it's telling us that we need to go back now and tell it, okay, what is it that I'm matching? And what am I matching it to? So we're still working from our original document, so we're going to come here and go back to our original. And once again, we're going to select A2, which is the first cell with the first student ID number that we want matched. At this point, we require another comma to give it its next sequence of events, in which case we're going to say, now I need you to go back to info, because you're going to take the information that you're finding here on this original document in this particular cell, which is A2, and you're going to match it to the source material, which is found in info, and column A that houses, in this case, all the student IDs, which is what's creating the match for us. we're going to click on a comma, a 0 for an exact match, and we're going to close the parentheses. Click enter, and there are homeroom numbers. Now, a couple of words of caution. I could hover here again and right click, double click, I'm sorry, and make quick work out of taking these numbers all the way to the end. However, let's say that for this student here, I had written a little note for myself and I had put not testing. If I come up here and I select the cell and I hover over this lower right hand corner and I double click, and I think I'm good to go. And it's not until, let's say that I'm in the process and I say, okay, well, I'm going to sort this. So I went ahead and I clicked anywhere on my sheet where there's information, and I held down my control key and clicked A. And that's just a shortcut, a keyboard shortcut to select from the leftmost, or I'm sorry, the rightmost column of information all the way down to your last row. It makes sure that all data is selected. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to data. And under data, I'm going to click sort and filter, and I'm going to custom sort. And for whatever reason, I'm going to request, or I'm going to deciding that I want this organized by homeroom teacher. I'm going to add a level, and then I'm going to say, and then after you alphabetize it by homeroom teacher, alphabetize it by student name. And when I click OK, whoa, I see all these holes, and I think, what happened? Why didn't my formula carry all the way down like it did here? Well, if we scroll down, we're going to find that not testing note. So let me take you back and let me show you what happened. This is before we sorted. We had taken and we had come here and we had double clicked, and we thought that it had gotten all the way down to the end, but we hadn't checked. When in fact, if you scroll down, you'll see that it went as far as it could, and when it found a cell that had information, it stopped there. And that's because it won't override information that you have on your spreadsheet, and you can see why that would be a problem, because if it did override the information, then you could potentially lose all sorts of information that's important to you. So in this case, we would take this note, we would shift it over, and the way you do that, same thing, you hover over this lower right hand corner, click on just do a regular left click and drag over, and it'll just copy that cell into the next cell over. Delete the contents of that cell, come back up, get the last cell where the formula had stopped. Now you can double click again, and now you want to make sure that you get used to always checking. Just take a quick scroll all the way down and make sure that everything has been assigned. So now we have both of these ready to go. Another word of caution. At times, if you're building a really large file with several worksheets and all the worksheets have multiple formulas, your sheet is in danger of becoming unstable. When it becomes unstable, it'll get glitchy, and you'll see that things just aren't working correctly. So what you're going to want to do in that case is you're going to want to come back and you want to get rid of all the formulas. The formulas are very taxing on the program. They require a lot of memory. So the more formulas you have, the slower your program will run, and the more glitchy it could get. Now, for something like this is not a big deal. You can leave the formula in place. And in fact, you'll want to leave the formula in place up until you're absolutely sure that you're 100% ready to print and go with this. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's say that I'm looking over the list in room 4102. I just realized that there was a group of 5 students that were supposed to be included in room 4102. I can go ahead and make quick work of that by opening up, selecting the 5 rows, and opening up by inserting 5 empty rows there. I can go back to the sheet that has my information for the 5 kids that I need brought into the roster. Okay, and I'm going to copy. I'm going to come back to my original, and I'm going to paste that information. Now, the testing date is going to be the same. The testing room is going to be the same. And I'm going to take that. I'm also going to hover over that right corner, and I'm going to drag down. I want you to take note of something. As I'm dragging, the room number is increasing by a digit. I don't want that to happen. That's called a fill series. And that's really helpful if you want to assign numeration, let's say, to a list of students. So you want the first one to be number 1, and then number 2, and number 3, and subsequent numbers all the way down. That's not what I want. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I just want to copy these cells. So I'm going to hit Control and press it down. And what it does is it toggles that feature. So it says, okay, I get it. You don't want to fill this. You want to copy. And that's exactly what I want to do. You'll also note that after the placement is made, this little submenu icon is here. If you click on this little downward arrow, it'll give you options, several options. And it does have the capabilities of doing this by date as well, as you can see here. But here you could toggle between the two, and you could say fill the series if it was a situation where you wanted things enumerated, or you can say just copy cells. In this case, we want copy cells. So it works the same way. You can either click, and as you go dragging, Control, press the Control key to toggle, or you can wait and then just open this up and set the setting that you need. So now I've got these 5 kids that I've inserted, but I don't have homeroom numbers and homeroom teachers for them. However, I still have everything in the formula here. So that means that I can just double click real quick, and I just made really quick work of assigning homeroom teachers and homeroom numbers for those 5 students. If it could have been 30 students, it could have been 100 students, it wouldn't matter. It's that quick that it all fills in. So you can see how this would be a real time saver. I do want to show you something that can trip you up when it comes to this. I'm going to hide some of these. I'm going to hide some of these columns so that we have a little more workspace and so that we can see exactly how this is working. Let me show you something real quick for those of you that just didn't catch that. If you look here, I hid columns, and you know that there's columns hidden because there's a jump in alphabet. I go A, B, and then I jump to L. You can also see that something's hidden because instead of a single division line here, I've got 2 lines, which tells me the columns have been hidden. This works for rows as well. Let me show you how to unhide. If you take the first row to the left of the hidden columns, and the row immediately after the hidden columns to the right, and you select both of those, you right click and you come down here and you unhide, and there they are. In this case, we're going to hide them again. So you select all your columns, right click, and hide. Okay. Oops, hold on, let's unhide again because I hid more columns than what I need to. In fact, I need some of these columns showing for the purposes of this demonstration. So your principal comes in and she gives you a list of students, and she says, I'm going to email you a list of 50 students. I need you to make sure that you captured all of them. Last year they were missed for testing, whatever the case is. But she's got a list of IDs that she actually keyed in herself. She put them in manually. So let's say I've got this first one, 06912334. And a little bit further down this list, we got 5451234. And I know further on down in my list, I've got another one that's 5551234. Now I want you to look at this grouping and look at the information on this side. You'll notice that it's not quite the same. There's several differences. For one, the leading zero is missing. This will become a problem if you go to do mail merge. If you print this document or any document, it'll become a problem because all of our IDs at Miami-Dade County Public Schools have a lot of zeros, or a lot of them do have either at least one leading zero or several leading zeros. Another thing that you're going to find is that instead of it being aligned to the right or to the left of the column, it's actually aligned to the right of the column. And the last difference that you're going to notice is that this column shows a little triangle up at the right-hand corner, whereas these values have no triangles. So let's go through some of this. Let's say that you want that leading zero in there. Everybody's tendency is to select the column, come down, say Format Cells, put Custom, and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7 zeros represent the 7 placeholders that we have in our MDCPS student IDs. You click OK. That 0 is there, but that 0 is there only on the screen. If you go to print, the 0 drops. If you go to mail merge, the 0 drops. So how do we get it so that that 0 stays in place? Well, let me give you another little pointer. That little triangle that's up there on the upper left-hand corner of the cell is indicative of the fact that there's something been done, that there's a formatting that's been implemented on these cells. And in fact, you see here this little drop down. If you click on that drop down, it says number stored as text. You can convert it to number, and you can you do all sorts of things. Don't touch any of this. File Download Manager has been designed so that all our student IDs do come in stored as text, so that you do have those leading zeros and you don't lose them. So when you do have a handwritten or a hand-typed list like you have here, where it's been manual entry, you can't solve that problem by just putting a 0 or reformatting the cells with 7 placeholders to force that 0 to appear. Nor can you reformat the cell and say, okay, well, I just want it as text. You see that it did shift over and it aligned to the left, but it also wiped out the 0, and those triangles still aren't in place. In fact, if I were to take and do a match index off of here, or I'm sorry, an index match off of here. Now bear in mind that index match you can do between sheets like we did in our example. You can also do it between worksheets, and you can also do it within 2 tables. So for our purposes here, this is considered a table and this is considered a table. So we're going to execute an index match, and I'm going to say equals index, and the index value is going to come up, and I'm going to go ahead and double click on that command. It's going to open up a parentheses. I'm going to say in this case, what I want to appear here is the student names that are listed in column C. Then I'm going to execute the second part of my formula. So I will need a comma, and I'm going to start again with open parentheses, and I'm going to start typing out the word match. Match comes up, I double click, another parentheses opens up. So now I've got to tell it, okay, what do I want to match? I want to match the information right here, which is this first ID. And what am I matching it to? Let's put a comma here. I need to match it against this column. So I want the program to look down the entirety of column A until it finds the 691234. And then I need to make sure that the program understands that I need an exact match. So I'm going to close it with 3 parentheses, and I'm going to click enter. It returns an NA value. That means, no, I'm not finding that number. Okay, let's go down to the next one. Not finding that one, not finding that one. Well, I know for a fact that these numbers are here. So that tells me that this is not that the number isn't here. It's because the fields aren't matching. And what's preventing them from matching, is the formatting issue. So I'm going to turn this into text. I'm going to format it and convert it into text. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to write equals text. I'm going to open a parentheses. And this is a simple little formula that you really need to learn. Equals text. What's my value? What am I looking at? Well, I'm looking at this value that's sitting right here in the address of the cell, which is Q2, which is where the column and the row intersect. So equals text Q2. I'm going to put a comma because now I'm going to tell it what it needs to do. I'm going to open quotes and I'm going to put 7 zeros, which is the format that our IDs are in. And now I'm going to close quotes and close parentheses. I'm going to click on enter. And then I'm going to carry that formula all the way down and make sure that all of them take that value. I'm going to come back here to my original formula, my index match. And I'm looking at the index match and I'm going, well, now I've got the right formatting. Let's get rid of the text. So here's how you get rid of any formula. You're going to make your selection where the formula is, and you're going to hover over those selected cells, and anywhere in that shaded area, you're going to click right, or you're going to right click, and you're going to come up to copy. You're going to right click again, and this time you're going to paste values only. So it's that little clipboard that says 1, 2, 3. Paste 1, 2, 3. You're going to notice something. The formula is gone up here. Now we actually have a value. You're also going to notice the 0 is now in place. And the last thing you're going to notice is that the little triangle on the upper right-hand corner or the upper left-hand corner is in place. So why isn't the formula working? Let's go back to index match. We're telling it to reference column C. We're saying index column C. We're saying to match Q2. Oh, wait a minute. I don't want to match Q2. Now I want to match P2, right? So we're going to change the value here, and we're going to say, no, we're shifting because we reformatted the text or the number as text. So now I want you to look in column P. And there's our match. And we go down, and there's our match. To get rid of the formulas, doesn't matter what formula you're talking about. To get rid of the formula, you hover over it, you select, within the selected information, you right-click, click copy, go back to hovering over the selection, right-click again, click 1, 2, 3. Hit escape, and the selection goes away. You can bring back formulas the same way you can undo anything. You can come up here and go undo, and your formulas are back in place. If you decided, oh wait, I had more students to look up, you continue doing your lookup here and pulling down here, and you'll get everything you need. All right, so that's your index match. And I really encourage you guys to practice, practice, practice. Please don't be discouraged. What I did when I first started learning this formula is I typed this out, I cut it, and I put it on the top of my monitor. And I would force myself to use it regularly until I got to the point where it became second nature. This is one of the most helpful formulas that you'll ever run across. This is VLOOKUP on steroids. It doesn't matter. Your columns don't have to be in any particular order. The student ID column could have been over here, and it would have worked. If you get stuck, please reach out to myself or Kathy Sierra, and we will gladly help you. Okay, till next time.